jumping from the sound booth or hopping into your favorite auditorium, theater, whatever you want to say
Mm-hmm.
for Jay's Film Green.
Jay's
Yeah.
Film Grain, baby. Yes, sir. All right. So today, for the first one, I want to start off with a movie that's pretty well regarded. May or may not have heard of it. It's called CODA. Uh, you've definitely heard of it. It was the Academy Award winning for Best Picture of the Year. It also won a
Hmm.
couple awards for the actors. I think it was Best Supporting Actor, but we'll get into that. So before we get
Okay.
into my analysis and our thoughts on the movie, why don't we jump into a brief synopsis? This movie takes place in a fishing town called Gloucester, Massachusetts. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but whatever. It follows our protagonist Ruby, who's a 17, 18-year-old, high school senior who's kind of discovering herself in the world, and she happens to be a CODA, which is an acronym for Child of Deaf Adults. Now, um, she has her parents are both deaf, and so is her older brother Leo. Her father's name is Frank. Her mother's name is
Jackie?
Jackie. Yes, her mother's name is
Yeah,
Jackie.
Jackie.
I forgot. I couldn't remember if it was Jessica or
Mm-mm.
Jackie. No, the main conflict, if you want to call it, of this movie is she has basically been living as an interpreter for as long as she has been alive because she is the only one in her family who is hearing.
Mm.
So her family has been I don't want to say using her, but she has been like kind of a doorway into the hearing world, and it's been very helpful for her family to
Mm-hmm.
have her
Mm-hmm.
around to translate for like her dad's job or school stuff or whatever is needed, communication with family. If you are a coda and you're listening to this, you probably understand that. Um, but yes, so she has a passion for music. She's an excellent singer. She's a very beautiful singer, and she wants to go. She decides that she wants to go to college. She doesn't want to help out with her dad's fishing business anymore. She wants to move on and go to the school called Berkeley. She meets this really great music teacher who teaches her how like the proper um, method of singing, like using your breath and opening up your chest and different breathing exercises because she has no formal training. And he kind of mentors her on her way towards Berkeley. But at the same time, her family is uh, leaving this third party to sell their fish, and they're going to be selling the fish by themselves with the other fishermen in the town. So that's basically like how the synopsis goes. And of course, there's a love interest and there's a best friend, but they're not super important. We'll get into that in a little bit. But that's basically how the movie goes. It's a really beautiful character drama, nice Bildungsroman. That means a coming of age story. And I like that. Well, actually,
Technical.
before we get into that, what are before we get into that, what are some of your thoughts on the movie before I get into my stuff? Because I'm gonna be talking for a while.
Okay, so I got three things. My favorite character was Frank, her
Yep,
dad,
definitely the dad.
mainly
Yep, yep.
because he resembles so much of my dad. So like I was able to put myself like more and like into the shoes of the character. So
Hmm.
like the his sense of humor and stuff again like straight on like my dad. And then there's two scenes that are like my favorite. The first scene was when she went to her teacher that was like training her for her audition, and like he was saying like, oh, um you're not respecting my time, but she's like stuck between helping her whole family
Hmm.
and like this new business, but then she also want to like pursue something on her own, and then she finally like
Hmm.
broke down there saying like she's never done anything without her family before.
Hmm.
So I thought that was like a really powerful scene. And then and I don't want to spoil the movie, but like the end scene when she finally did the duet and like
Hmm.
her parents' perspective of it, like really like it was like wow. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's like the main takeaways I have from the movie. But overall, I really did like it.
Hmm. Yeah, it was a. I think that the writing was definitely my favorite part. It felt very. I wrote down here. I took some
Hmm.
notes while I was watching it. I wrote that this movie feels like a nice home cooked meal. It's very comforting. It's very
Oh
warm.
yeah.
You feel very at
Mhm.
home when you're watching this movie because
Mhm.
there's things that you can relate to as just as a person. The of course, like most of the characters are deaf in this movie, but that doesn't mean anything. They're still a family. They still, joke
Yeah.
around about stuff. They still have things they talk about. Like they're no different
Yeah.
from us. They just can't hear. And that was kind of a sentiment that I was watching some deaf reviewers. That was something that they appreciated about this movie. They said that the portrayal is very accurate. They had a very nice family dynamic, and these people were
Mhm.
saying that they're very close with their parents. This guy who was a coda who I watched, he said his parents like cried when they were watching the movie because they loved how the family
Oh
was
wow.
portrayed. So that was something that I definitely really appreciated. The comedy definitely did it for me. There was a couple of things that I really liked. There was a scene where the at the very beginning when they're kind of doing the establishing stuff, like showing where we are. who were talking about, what the girl is like, what the school is like. The dad is coming in his pickup truck and he's bumping 2 Chains, and it's
Uh huh.
so funny because it's
Her
loud
dad
and
look
everyone
gangster rap.
and he's like this white looking dude. He's like this white country looking dude, and he's listening to this rap music, and it's so funny. That was
Yeah.
yeah. I really liked the jokes and the comedy in this movie.
That's
Um,
that's
I
fire.
also liked that the high school wasn't. I don't really know how to put this, but when you see these kind of high school dramas, like Euphoria or Riverdale, or even High School Musical, the
Mm-hmm.
characters, the actors all look very like model-esque. They look like they should be on Teen Vogue or
Mm.
like doing
Yeah.
some Aeropostale jeans shoot or something like that. These all
Aeropostale.
look like regular normal kids, and like that's the best way I can describe them. They just look like normal kids. I like that they're not all 30 years old. They're about 18
Yeah.
ish, 18 to 20. I don't think you can hire
So
minors
the
to do that,
the
but
casting
yeah,
the
the cast was
casting was
very
like
good.
really really
The
good.
cast was excellent. Yes. Um. Okay. Speaking of the cast, this was this movie is actually a remake of a French film called La Famille
Mm.
Bélier. I'm sorry to my French viewers if I pronounced that
French.
wrong, but
Uh-huh.
they they basically that original film had no deaf actors in it, so all the actors were hearing. The whole
Wow.
cast, the whole crew was hearing. Yeah, they
Mm.
really fumbled the bag
Okay.
on that one. And this was
Yeah.
recently made. It was made in like 2014. It wasn't made that long ago. Um,
That's
so one of
crazy.
the one of the producers of that movie uh, came to the director. Her name is Sean Heater. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Sean Heater. And they were like, "I want to redo this for American slash English speaking audiences. And we're going to do it right." So they hired a bunch of ASL interpreters, translators, deaf casting crew,
Mm.
everything. And the deaf cast
All right.
really,
The whole nine
really,
yards.
the whole 9 yards. The deaf cast really did it for me. I think they were some of the best actors in this movie. And
Oh
I
yeah.
was reading the interview that they did with the director, and she was saying how she learned that um, ASL is it's not just your hands, like your whole body and your facial expressions, and even like your mouth is
Oh yeah.
different, makes different shapes when you're signing. And it makes for a
Oh
really
yeah.
compelling performance, and even the comedy, it makes it more
Yeah.
physical. It makes it even funnier because you like have to look at what they're doing. And they were saying that ASL is a very intimate language because you have to be looking at the person to see what they're doing, and they're very expressive, so
Yeah.
that really makes their performances very um powerful and unique, and you really like feel their
Yeah. Like
emotions because like mhm.
I was gonna say like the scene where her parents thought that they were having sex and the dad was like, "You need to use a condom," and did the
Yeah,
whole
and yours
army soldier with his whole arm. Oh my
yeah, that
god.
was that was
That had
another
me out. That
that
had
was a
me
really
out.
funny scene. Oh, it was so good. I love the parents were so good. um there were definitely some weak points in this movie, from
Yeah.
a film perspective.
Okay.
There was the best friend character. I felt like they didn't really need to include her. She really didn't do much in the movie. She was just kind of there to hook up with the brother, and then that was kind of it.
That was
She didn't
weird.
really.
Was she supposed to be 18? Because
I
I
hope
was
she
like,
was.
this is weird. I was like,
I'm pretty sure she was. I think it was implied,
okay,
but
okay, good. Because I was like, this is kind of weird. She's supposed to be like 16. Like,
but that but that's kind of the point, is that they don't really do anything with her, so you don't really know anything
yeah,
about her. So
yeah,
I felt like they could have left
that
her
makes
out,
sense.
and I really Mm, I wish to God that they had focused more on the older brother. The older brother was such a
Okay,
compelling
interesting.
character. That actor,
Yeah.
his name is Daniel Daniel Durand. He is a fantastic actor. He's actually
Mm,
pretty well
all
known. He's
right,
been in a couple Netflix shows. He's really good. I really like him.
all
But
right,
there
all
was a
right.
scene with the two of them. The conflict between the two siblings is that, obviously he's deaf and she's hearing, so a lot more responsibility is placed on her because it's a little easier for the family to communicate with the hearing because she can
Yeah.
hear, and it's reading
Mm-hmm.
lips isn't, they say in the film, it's like not as efficient or whatever. But
Yeah.
I mean, he makes a really good point that there was a deaf reviewer, her name is Ricky Pointer. She like really appreciated that this was in the movies, that deaf people aren't babies. They're not children.
Mm-hmm.
They've been communicating with the hearing their whole lives. They know how to do it. They are no different
Yeah.
from us aside from the fact that they can't hear. That's literally the only difference. Um
Mm-hmm.
and they've grown up in a hearing world. It's so they know how to, fit in with a hearing world, so to speak. Um
Yeah.
and he becomes frustrated because he has no responsibility and he gets treated like a baby by his own family just because he can't hear, even though it's his idea to come up with the fishing business. You know,
Mhm.
he's the one who's like doing a lot of the work, and he just becomes really frustrated. And I can kind of, I'm an older brother, so I can kind of understand why he's frustrated having no responsibility, even though he's perfectly capable of doing things by himself.
Oh yeah.
And they
Oh
show
yeah.
that. I just wish they had done more to explore that relationship between the two of them. They only had that one fight and a couple moments where he got upset, but I didn't think that was quite enough.
Yeah.
Another issue, this isn't coming directly from me, but you can almost like I watched this movie a couple times to get a good analysis, to sift through with a fine grain,
Oh
That's how we do it on the
yeah.
film grain, baby.
Yeah,
Um,
he's film great.
but you can tell that even as like a hearing person, you can tell that the actor, I think her name is Emily Jones, who plays Ruby, Amelia Jones, sorry, that she is not like a real coda and that she's not really fluent. I mean, she does a great job. Don't get me wrong. She does a great job. Her performance is great, but you can tell that her signing is not on the same level as the other deaf characters in the movie. And
Mm.
I watched again Ricky Pointer, the deaf reviewer. She said the same thing. She's like, I can tell that it's off. I imagine it's like if you speak Spanish and you hear someone who's speaking like year six Spanish, it doesn't quite sound right.
Yeah. Like it's there, but
and
it's there, but it's not there.
Yeah, and then this other coda whose name is Alan Boatner, he kind of expressed a similar sentiment. He wished they had hired a real coda because there are plenty of coda actors in Hollywood. They could have found somebody.
Really?
Um, yeah. Oh yeah, dude. There's so many. There's so many. There's all types of actors in Hollywood. Just they're just very picky with who they
Yeah,
put in their
that's
movies because
true.
of how
That's
marketable they
true.
are or whatever. Um. Oh yeah. Another thing that I thought was kind of funny, this is kind of veering away from my thoughts and a little more because I view this movie as more than just like a movie. This is meant to be like a representation film. Is kind of what this is supposed to be.
Oh
It's
yeah.
supposed to kind of like open a doorway and expose millions of people to something that isn't, well, is talked about but doesn't hasn't really had the public platform that it should have. It's getting
It's not
better
like the
now.
main. It's like not like mainstream.
Yeah. They said that they like that they don't shy away from talking about sex in this movie.
Oh yes, one hundred
they
percent. Oh my gosh.
Ricky Pointer was saying that it's it's very it's like sex is already pretty taboo in movies and whatever, but it's like a ultra taboo when it's like, differently abled, disabled people. It's
Hmm.
like, ooh, we're not supposed to talk about that. But they just
Yeah.
like they're like, nope, they do it. Here it is.
Like
There's
now
like a
we
not a real
they
sex scene,
do
but
it.
it's like a yeah, it's right there. It's right
Yeah.
there. I mean, it's PG-13 there, but it's like it's there.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, overall, I really did enjoy the writing of this movie. Like that's like my big takeaway. The cinematography. This isn't like meant to be. I did write in here. I really love indie films because indie films are almost always captured what's called in camera. So in camera means
mm,
what you see
More
there
technical term.
exists and it's all real and stuff like that. A lot of
Okay.
like big blockbuster movie stuff that we see is like the only thing that's captured in camera or like the actors and everything else is
Mm,
green screen. But I
oh,
like
that's
that they
true.
actually like they went on a boat and they went into the forest and they went to the lake and all that stuff is captured in camera and it's just like a quality that you can't quite mirror. And I just really appreciated that.
Yeah.
It makes it feel all that more real and like relatable.
Hmm.
Um, I
Definitely.
would I would definitely say that the strongest points of the movie are the singing scenes. Those are definitely the strongest points in the movie.
Hmm.
Especially like AP mentioned the duet. So there's a whole thing. Yeah, that's the other thing. The love interest in this movie, it was really cute, but it wasn't really the focal point. That was another thing. I was like, they should have either focused on it more or left it out entirely. I don't know. It was
Mm.
I
Okay.
have mixed thoughts
Interesting.
about it.
Yeah. All right.
But so in movies that have music in it, there's usually like, they're singing and they're practicing, and then there's the big duet like at the end of the movie or whatever.
Hmm.
But
The big
when she
show.
finally does the big duet, it just silent. It's meant to mirror what the parents are feeling. And the parents are
Yeah.
sitting pretty far back in the audience, so they can't even like really read her lips because they're really far away. And it's like a really powerful moment because like you can feel that, they're trying to support their sister, their
Hmm.
daughter, but they
Hmm.
they can't appreciate her talent. And then there's right after that, they hit you in the stomach with this scene with her father, and they're sitting in the back of the pickup truck, and her father asked her to perform the song again, and he puts his hands
It
on her
had me
throat
crying.
and on her back so he can feel like her breath, feel her vocal cords vibrate. And it almost, movies don't make me cry, but that one, that almost got me.
I ain't
That
gonna
almost
lie,
got
I
me.
got teary eyed.
Yeah, it
Like
got me.
I wasn't
He's a
balling, but
softie.
I was teary eyed. Hey, what happens when you finally let yourself feel emotions again? You end up feeling emotions, and I was like, wow, this is beautiful. I was like,
Yeah,
man, this had me. It
it
had
was a
me.
really
I ain't gonna
beautiful
lie.
moment.
It was good.
Um,
It was good.
but kind of bouncing off that, while it was really beautiful and really well done, this is a trope that I do notice when there's a deaf character in a
Mm,
movie. Music is something that they tend to focus on. It's like, oh no, they're deaf.
mm,
They can't listen to music. Oh, how terrible. But like that's not true.
yeah.
Deaf people listen to music
Mm,
all the time. There's so well, they can enjoy music. They can't listen to music, but they enjoy music. Um, they they like I said, rap music, music with heavy bass. There's like hundreds of deaf musicians and deaf songwriters and whatever. It's just like something
feel
that
that
feels like a bit of a tired
vibration.
trope.
Ooh.
Is a bit of a tired trope, and I wish that they would kind of move past it because we had The Sound of Metal. Now this movie, there was another one that I can't think of where it's like a similar
Mm,
thing. It's like, oh, there's a deaf musician. Whatever shall they do? And I just kind
damn.
of wish they would explore something new, narratively speaking. But I do understand that it's like easy, so people kind of gravitate towards it, but they try to do it different. I just think that as a whole, me personally, they should just try something else. Try something else. I don't know.
Yeah. Listen to Jay. He knows what he's talking about. You see, you hear all these technical terms. What this man's doing? This man's about it. He's like that. He's like that.
I'm like that. I read. I be reading and watching a
He
lot of
be
master
reading.
classes.
He be watching. He be doing a do.
But yeah, yeah, wow, man. What a movie. I would still watch this movie again and again with my family. It's such a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have my problems with it, but honestly, I can ignore those because it's just such a beautiful, relatable story. You know, it's like a story of
Mm-hmm.
responsibility and making sacrifices and
Mm-hmm.
finding your path, which is something that I think that we can all kind of appreciate
Oh yeah.
being this age. It never really
Oh yeah.
stops, I think, that feeling of finding yourself. I don't think it really stops, especially being young, you know, being 18
Mm-hmm.
to 20 something.
Mm-hmm.
This weird period that we're in our lives. Sometimes it's nice to see someone who
Oh yeah.
is able to find themselves, and then you
Oh
can
yeah.
kind of glom onto it.